Is great to see you all. Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself? I'll call on people.
Yeah, I'm Jeff Stackhouse. I'm in Lanya's office. I'm the livestock and natural resources advisor with UC Cooperative Extension up here, and I help quite a bit with the PBA doing different burns, but primarily on ranches for range improvement projects.
Awesome. Jeff is my partner in crime in all this prescribed fire stuff. Annie, our lovely presenter.
Hey everybody, nice to see many of you. I'm assuming we're all in West Coast time, so good morning. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to be giving a brief presentation and hopefully leading us in a workshop around our communication outreach skills for PBAs. I am a communication specialist working on a portfolio of different projects around prescribed fire in California. I'd say the biggest representative is the Fire Adapting Communities Learning Network, or FACNet. I do a lot of stuff for them, but I also work with Lania on a variety of projects like W-Tracks and the Northern California Prescribed Fire Council. So I'll do more introducing of all the projects I do a little bit later, but that's me in a nutshell.
And Annie helps manage our Cal PBA website as well.
Yep, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Logan.
Hi everyone, I'm Logan. I work at the Plumas County Fire Safe Council, and I'm I co-coordinate the Plumas Underburn Cooperative with Hannah.
Awesome, thanks Logan. Luca.
Hello everybody, I'm a fire advisor with the UC Cooperative Extension. I'm based in Southern California in Irvine. I work a little bit more in the urban environment, like home hardening, defensible space, and things like that. But there have been some talks about starting some PBAs in Southern California, like especially San Diego and the LA counties. So yeah, I'm here to learn more.
Awesome. Yeah, Luca's our awesome fire advisor in Southern California, kind of our main presence down there for UC. So Aaron.
Hi everybody, I'm Aaron Krikova, the organizer of the Rogue Valley Prescribed Burn Association up here in Oregon. Thanks for sharing with it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're joining us. Autumn.
I'm Autumn. I'm the new coordinator for the California Fire Science Consortium.
Great. Yeah, everyone welcome Autumn in. It's exciting to have you back, have someone in charge of the Fire Science Consortium again. Brooke, so good to see you.
Hey guys, good to see everyone. I'm Brooke Edwards with Sonoma County Regional Parks and focused on forestry and fuels management. And we actually have 3 fires within the next month lined up for our Sonoma County Regional Park. So looking forward to roll that out and keep it going into the fall.
Awesome. Alex.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex Wilbanks. I'm the forestry project manager with the Napa County Resource Conservation District.
Oh, cool. Great. Maddie.
Hi, I'm Maddie Smith. I work for the Watershed Research and Training Center on our RFFC program, and I'm just looking forward to kind of being a fly on the wall and learning what Annie's been up to.
Great. Glad you can join us. Tracy.
Morning. I'm Tracy Cattleman. I'm a consulting forester, been working in the fire space for a few decades. As I mentioned, helping to get the YOLO PBA started. I got to be part of the Humboldt PBA when we first launched. Yeah, that's probably enough. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to see you, Tracy. And Hannah.
Hey, good morning. I'm Hannah. I'm the program director for the Plumas County Fire Safe Council. And like Logan said, I help co-coordinate the Plumas Underburn Co-op.
Sweet. Good to see you, Hannah. Okay, everyone. Well, I just had one quick update, and I don't know if other people have any pertinent updates for this group, but the update that I have is that the claims fund is finally going to roll out on Monday, supposedly. So it's a little later than we hoped. We had hoped that it would be ready in May, but it had to go through the governor's office. And anyway, they've we're all set. We have the press release ready to go. We're planning to launch it at 1 p.m. on Monday. So keep an eye out for that. I'll also send out an email so that you all have access to the links, and we really want to show demand for it. So I really urge you, if you have projects like Brooke, if you have burns lined up, I know we do with the Humboldt PBA as well, sign them up. Like, let's use this thing and really show that it's needed. And, you know, hopefully we can keep it persisting into the future. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, I am going to host a webinar, an informational webinar about the claims fund with Sarah Clark, July 11th from 1 to 2:30. So that's going to be an opportunity to like run through the whole, you know, how you reserve a slot, like all the requirements, and then of course, like what it means, what the protection is, how that works, what the process is. So July 11th, 1 to 2:30, and I'll be sending that out probably next week. So get that on your calendars. Does anyone else have any updates for this group?
I guess I have a question about the claims fund link.
Sure.
Is there gonna be like kind of a self-guided outline to get people through their June burns on how to get them signed up?
Yeah, I mean, it's not overly complicated. So yeah, next week when it goes out, there's an FAQ and guidelines document. So you'll be able to like read through and understand exactly how to go through that process. And then it's an online application form. And really you have to give project information. You have to say who the burn boss is or the cultural practitioner, who, you know, whoever's leading that burn. That person is the one who has to request the claims fund reservation. So if you're just a landowner or like work for an NGO or something, but if you're not a federally qualified burn boss, a state certified burn boss, or a cultural practitioner, you can't access the fund. So that's kind of a key piece. But yeah, all those documents will be ready to go. There's going to be a web platform, like a web page for it, and then that'll link to the application. And yeah, so as soon as next Monday, we should be able to start enrolling projects in that. And it's per project. So yeah, and the project would be defined by the burn plan. So you could have a burn plan that has multiple units in it, and that would all just be covered under one reservation in the claims fund. So, okay, any other updates? Okay, well, Annie, let's turn it over to you. And I'll just say, Jeff and I are going to co-moderate this call. I'm going to have to jump off at noon. So if we go past noon, then Jeff's going to close us out. But great to see you all. And thank you, Annie.
Sure. Thank you, Linya and Jeff. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that we were able to organize a fireside chat about communications. I hope that it's sort of just an opportunity to touch base and see where everybody's at in terms of communication strategy, and offer some insights that I've found working on a variety of different projects, and also just solidify myself as a resource for you as in terms of communication needs that you might have. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, actually, it looks like host disabled participant screen sharing.
Here, I can, I'll do that. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay. Okay.
Here we go. Okay. Okay, so can everybody see my screen?
Yep,
okay.
Looks good.
Awesome, thanks. All right, so
you know what?
communication.
Hey, Annie, sorry. We can also see your little like presenter view.
Oh, you can?
box. Yes.
How about now?
Okay, that looks good.
You can, okay, cool. I'm not gonna show you all the way behind the curtain. Okay, so communications and outreach for PBAs. I wanted to just from the bat, just kind of emphasize that this is communications in the sense of like outreach and education, not so much about like using radios or communications when we're out on a fire operation. This is very much about sort of the external, the way that you want to be understood and seen by external audiences and the work that you're doing and certain strategies to get there. So who am I? I don't recognize everybody's name on this call, so I figured it'd be good to do a deeper dive on what I do and why I'm even here talking with you. So I'm a communications specialist, and the Watershed Center is my direct employer, but I have sort of a suite of projects that I work on. Within the Watershed Research and Training Center, I work for a project called the Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network, which is a really robust network of fire practitioners around the country and some international folks as well. We do all sorts of different training opportunities and learning opportunities for members to kind of engage with one another, get some deep dive understandings of different topics within fire adaptation. For Fire Adapt Communities Learning Network, I also run a weekly blog called the FactNet blog. If you aren't subscribed to that blog, please get on the list. It's a really good resource and platform for folks to share stories, lessons learned, some thought pieces and essays that can sometimes, stir the pot on the conversation in fire. So get on our list if you're not already. And I also want to emphasize that this blog is something that anybody can write for in this space. So I'm always looking for interested authors to be featured on this platform. We get really good readership. Lots of folks share our stories. So we'll come back to that later. So within the Watershed Center, I also do quite a few projects for the fire management team, kind of following them around to kind of better understand what on the ground work looks like for fire adaptation. Been to quite a few trainings, and I myself have my FFT too. So sometimes I get out on the line and do some prescribed fire work, which I love and really helps inform the communications work that I do. I also run some social media channels. So if social media is something you're interested in or want to get geared up on, let's talk more. I run a Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram account for the Women Prescribed Fire Training Exchange Program, or WTREX, and work closely with Lania on that. And I also run a Facebook page for the General Prescribed Fire Training Exchange, or TREX, program, which many of your events and work has been featured on, folks on this call. I also manage the back end of the calpba.org site, which I hope many of you are intimately familiar with. Many of you have a page that features your PBA on there. I want to talk about that today. I want to make sure that everybody feels good about the direction of this website and sees it as an extension of your work, not as sort of just a page floating out there. And I am happy to be a thought partner in how to bolster your presence on that site. And I also do some work with Lania supporting the Northern California Prescribed Fire Council website and Facebook page. So I have a lot going on, and I think through all of these different projects, I've been able to understand lots of different angles and elements of the prescribed fire movement in California and beyond, and hope to be a resource for you today. All right, so just a quick agenda of what I'd like to cover. I don't think we're going to need the full hour and 15 minutes, but I wanted to start by kind of giving an overview of some tips, resources, ideas that I've found helpful in terms of structuring communications for a PBA. This could also apply to other entities and organizations. We're going to talk specifically about communication strategies, how to identify and engage with different audiences, as well as some methods and platforms to achieve some of those goals and strategies that you might come up with. And then we're going to take a few minutes we might jump into breakout rooms, depending on the size of our group, just to take stock of how you're feeling about your communications. Once I've put a bunch of ideas into your head, like, where is our communication strategy? Where do we want to grow it? Where do we feel like we're doing well? And then we'll finish by having a larger group discussion and peer support opportunity to say, well, this is what I kind of noticed. This is what I need help with. And maybe others can share success stories that might meet the needs of other peers. So any questions before I kick off? I'm looking at the chat here. Oh, thanks, Lania and Jeff for putting in some of these links. Cool. Well, I'll keep on going then. So PBA communications. Again, this is about external communications, not radios or things that you're doing when you're out on a fire, right? This is about storytelling. That's what I like to say. This is about how do I express the heart of the work that I'm doing to an audience, and depending on that audience, how am I expressing it differently? I know I just said it's all about external communications, but I do want to make a point that there is a difference between internal and external communication plans and strategies within your little organization or PBA, and then the external strategies that you use to communicate with outside audiences. So we'll talk a little bit more about the differences and importances between those. I will talk about knowing your audience, making sure you're taking the time to identify different audiences, and so you're not wasting your time communicating to people that don't actually vibe with the message you're putting out. And then again, we'll talk about some of these different platforms that I found really useful, both online and in person, to reach those audiences and actually deploy your communication strategies. So, internal communication strategies. When I talk about that, I'm talking about really like your entire organization strategy. You'll find when you sit down and start to have a communications conversation with your team, it starts to become much broader than just how you're communicating about it, but like what the work is. And so it's actually really valuable to have a conversation specifically about communications, because you might start to realize where there are gaps in understanding between our team of what the work is and how we communicate about it. So it's really valuable, and you'll find that dedicating time for that conversation tends to be really important. I also encourage folks to consider making specific communication materials for onboarding new employees or members of your team or even volunteers, because you'll find that those sort of key messages and key points, having like hammered them out and developed them, is a really valuable tool for somebody that's new coming in. And without some of those key messages and that sort of core understanding of what your work is, it can be kind of hard for somebody new to come in and really hit the ground running. So I just find that it's really valuable to have those internal communication conversations, so that prepackaged almost for new people or new volunteers. And as sort of a byproduct, that also ensures kind of a common understanding, a common thread, a sort of like drumbeat of your organization that can prepare folks to answer questions if you get questions from the public, from media, or what have you, when you're out there doing the work. And then you've got sort of external facing communications, which is born of the internal conversations that you have as a team. Really want to emphasize how important it is to have those conversations, because then you can understand how to communicate it to the public, right? If you can't communicate it to each other, how are you going to be external with it? How do you want to be perceived and understood by an audience? Like, is that a question that you can easily answer with your team? And if not, it's time to make an external communications plan. And I have a template for you that I'll share. Another thing to note is that if you're going to start engaging really intentionally with external communications, you're inviting in the necessary engagement with public, right? You're not just putting out information and then it just exists in a vacuum. I think it's really important to understand the commitment and of time and energy that it takes to have a presence in your community, whether it's online or in person. It does take energy to communicate with the public, as I'm sure you're all very aware. So, knowing your audiences. This is just sort of like, okay, how am I going to cater the content that I'm putting out there to have the most impact, to reach the most, to save the most time in how I'm communicating? Like, I wouldn't necessarily put out information about statistics and stuff to volunteers. Like I want to send them photos. I'd want them to see how happy people are when they're out there on the fire line. But that's going to be different depending on the audience that you're communicating with. So here's a couple examples of sort of common audiences that I see PBAs communicating with. And it's important to kind of cater your communication strategy to these different audiences. And that takes some profiling, right? It takes like some energy to like think about, oh, the profile of the volunteer. What kind of engagement do they need versus our funders? Like, how do I make sure that they feel acknowledged and appreciated for the work that they're supporting? And how am I presenting myself externally, or our work externally, so that other funders could find you and potentially support your work further? So knowing your audience is really important. It's part of the communication strategy plan. And it's kind of sometimes fun to put on a little psychological hat of like, oh, how would someone approach this content differently depending on where they're coming from and where their perspective lies. So a quick talk about methods and platforms. So there's lots of different ways to engage this audience that you've identified, right? Whether you're online, whether you're in person, whether you're making phone calls, like there's lots of different ways to reach your audience. And the reason I'm keeping this super vague is because I know that depending on where you are in California or beyond, your audience is going to want to be approached in different ways. So I'm happy to have more one-on-one conversations with folks so that we can get more specific. But in a general sense, here are a few of the methods and platforms that I have experience with and have found useful in terms of engaging with folks. So, of course, we have social media, which is a beast in and of itself. It can be a time suck if you don't have sort of that communications plan ready to go and very specific ideas about the cadence and the content that you want to put out there. A couple examples, just the sort of logos I've got on here: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Those are some of the big ones that get a lot of attention as kind of the social media giants. There's also other video platforms like TikTok. It just kind of depends on what kind of energy you have, what kind of commitment or availability you have within your staff to be running social media channels. Something that I recommend if you are going to be working on social media is this app called Hootsuite, and it's sort of like a place to gather lots of different content, and you can sign into all of your different social media accounts and sort of fire off different posts from one place. So it's a really convenient tool, so you're not kind of like code switching between different platforms constantly. So if you are a social media user for your PBA, you might look into this if you need some assistance sort of clarifying your editorial calendar for social media. Of course, there's in-person outreach. You know, if you're tabling at events, if you're showing up at, city council meetings, if you're going to trying to find like word of mouth through the landowners and the public figures in your community that are going to spread the good word about your work, that's always going to be beneficial. Maybe you have some kind of communications materials that are printed out and really nicely designed by a graphic designer even, or somebody. It's all about the commitment you're willing to put in that investment in those materials. And then, of course, we've got all sorts of email tools, which I know are really commonly used among PBAs around here. We've got lots of listservs and sort of groups on email to get information out to the constituencies. There's also some utility if you have a website. A lot of times the back end of your website will have a built-in newsletter feature. That's something I always like to mention for folks that use Squarespace, because it's a really seamless integration between your website and any email marketing you want to do. So if anybody does have Squarespace and wants to get more robust email marketing out there or communications going, maybe consider some of their back-end integrations. I also really suggest this tool called Canva. I'm sure many of you have heard about it before, but hiring a graphic designer is expensive. We don't all have the design sort of skills that are required to pump out a lot of content that's pretty and like engaging. Something like Canva is an online free resource to help with design. You can make flyers, you can make fact sheets, pamphlets, whatever you want, with some sort of like easy to use templates and design tools that are really straightforward and helpful. So I always like to flag that for folks when they're thinking about how to make their materials more engaging and save themselves some time and maybe some money too. So questions about all of this? I know I kind of covered a ton in like very short amount of time. Cool. Well, I thought we could take 20 minutes or so to maybe jump into some breakout rooms and kind of talk about some of this communication strategy. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and put some links in the chat to some templates that I've put together that I've found are pretty useful for folks as they're starting to think about strategy, or maybe you have a comm strategy in place and this could be a good supplement for it.
I actually have a really quick question.
Yeah, please.
So when we were talking about the mail management softwares, the last one that had the logo, I missed the name of it.
Oh yeah, it's Squarespace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions?
How big do you want the breakouts, Annie? Or do you think that we should just stay in a bigger group since there are only 12 of us?
Well, I think it could probably be useful if we were in slightly smaller groups. I have a little like mural board. Have you all used Mural before? It's like a kind of collaborative brainstorming tool. So everybody see if you can click into that link and access this board. Okay, looks like people are getting in there, so that's good. So I thought it might be good if we were in maybe groups of like 3 or 4, and you can kind of put some sticky notes in here to sort of answer some of these questions, these guiding questions at the top here about your communication strategy or sort of any sticking points, things like that. I don't think I have breakout room privileges, but if you want to send us into like maybe 3 rooms.
Let's see here. Okay. Let's try it. So Annie, we're just supposed to, once we get into the breakouts, we're just looking at those questions and then we're going to lose.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure everyone knows what we're
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, so I'd say let's take like, maybe we do like 15-minute breakout rooms and maybe go around in your group and sort of express how some of this is sitting with you, like where you're at with any sort of communications work, and start populating this board depending on your group or your breakout room number with some thoughts or ideas around the guiding questions at the top of the board.
Okay. Okay, cool. So the 1, 2, 3 is for the which breakout you're in. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Go. Is that prompting you? Okay, good.
There you go. Welcome back, everybody. Almost everybody. Maybe our last group is having a spirited conversation. Give them all the seconds they need.
Hey, Cordy.
Hey, Lenya, how are you?
Good. I didn't see you join, so it's good to see your face.
I know I came in a little bit late.
Logan, maybe you should explain to this little group while we're waiting, the link that you posted, because I think that is pretty sweet.
Sure, yeah, I can post it in this chat as well. So I think I started doing this in February, but I really like the Fire Learning Network networker emails. I like how concise they are and how they convey a lot of information with not a lot of words. And I kind of want to steal that. So I replicated it kind of on a more local scale for Plumas County. And so it's mostly about puck, but I also talk about like lessons learned and stuff like that, kind of in a concise manner where I'm not overloading people with information. And so hopefully they can kind of get some expectations for the next month puck wise, but also like they can kind of see what we did in the last month if they weren't able to volunteer at any of the things we held or whatever. So just trying to be concise and convey some information that I think is valuable to people.
That's awesome. Yeah, the networker is a really good resource. I don't know if I'm going to drop a link to that subscription.
Annie, I can do that if you want me to. I already have it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Great. Well, I hope it was useful to have some time together in smaller groups to just touch base and start the conversation. I was kind of lamenting to my group how difficult it is to like be super helpful with such a variety of different like contexts that you're working in. So again, just kind of here to like start the conversation and spark some ideas, unintended. So I guess I'm wondering just as we exit these breakout rooms, if there's any like particularly juicy conversations that came up or like things that could be shared with the larger group that were insights or questions.
You know, Annie, one of the things I was thinking that I don't know that we even have good answers for this, but I think it's been an interesting situation for us to deal with, and something that our PBAs may end up dealing with as well is so Annie, like she said, she helps me with some of the work on W-Trex, and we had there was a partner organization, Parks Canada, hosted a W-Trex in Banff earlier this spring, and they ended up having an escape on a burn during the W-Trex that ended up being kind of a significant situation and damaged some infrastructure. And anyway, we've been trying to struggle with social media reaction to that and like a strategy, communication strategy, because we weren't in charge of that burn, and it was a Parks Canada operation, but it's been conflated with W-Trex as a whole, and there's been a lot of really nasty social media response to that. So I don't know, I just thought as far as juicy, that one's pretty juicy. And Annie and I have been really struggling with like, what's the approach? Do you engage these nasty trolls who are saying like really crazy, terrible things about women? I mean, it's just become a venue for them to like, you know, share a lot of horrible thoughts, but we've taken an approach of not engaging. But I don't know, Annie, if you wanted to talk about that at all.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad you brought it up because it is sort of a top of mind thing that, I mean, this happened back in May, this escape, and, you know, we're still seeing some trolls pop up, rear their ugly heads to comment on now the ongoing wildfires across Canada that are now somehow also being linked back to W-Trex. So I guess women set Canada on fire, apparently, according to the trolls. Anyway, and this is something we were also kind of talking about in my group too, is kind of how to deal with some of this really negative energy that can be brought forward. And where it's really coming from, because the intention is to get a rise out of you or to make you respond and continue to engage and continue to give that person sort of a punching bag opportunity. And it's different, you know, when you have somebody in your community that might be expressing some kind of like proactive dialogue that could happen, or like there's an entryway to have a productive conversation. Online, sometimes you can just get kind of, you know, the flotsam and jetsam of the internet, which is like not pretty. And you just have to let it pass. And I think that's sort of a Zen practice that Lainey and I have both been trying to deal with, is like how to observe that sort of behavior and understand that it's coming from a pretty dark place in that person individually. And also the nature of the internet is that it tends to look in different directions pretty quickly. So I'd say like the nature of our work can invite some really strong reactions, some really strong responses, and really loaded responses because of the state of fire and what we're all working to try and kind of like better communicate about to people that we're hoping to, that will share our perspective of restoring this relationship. So it's a tricky one. And yeah, I think you kind of just have to let it be and hide comments, hide. You don't want it sticking around and for other people to see and for that dark message to spread. So I don't know if anybody's had a similar experience with really negative attention or how you've dealt with that, but I think it's important that we talk about it because it's tricky.
We've been working with countering wildfire misinformation, not necessarily the nasty trolls that, you know, are just gonna hate because they're haters. And there is a paper I can send out. Let's see, this is Frontiers in Ecological Environment, it looks like. But basically they put together a table of kind of like the arguments that Chad Hansen and his group put out, and then kind of like ways to kind of counter some of those that misinformation. And so that's something that we were talking about kind of building upon, just so that we have that in our heads of how to address some of these concerns. And these could be, you know, citizens that are just getting this misinformation and believe in it. And so ways to kind of rebut that and provide them with what we think, you know, is the correct fact-based ecological management of these ecosystems. So that's one thing that we've been looking at in our forest working group here in Sonoma County. And I can try to find where this is on the website and provide a link to everyone, so at least you can download that and have something to work from.
That's awesome. Yeah, that'd be really helpful. Yeah, just kind of getting ahead of things sometimes is important, you know, like how to anticipate a necessary dialogue if there's misinformation out there.
Hey, Annie, I don't know if this is a separate topic, but something people might want information on is just on the Cal PBA website and your ability to support that, or like what's your preferred kind of protocol for people to either, like, I don't know if the YOLO group, have they been added yet? Like we should probably revisit that at some point. Everyone should take a moment at some point, maybe it's now, to look at that website and see, are you on there? Is information accurate? You know, do you have good solid contact info there? Stuff like that. And then Annie can help us make those changes as needed. But I feel like last time I looked, maybe we were missing some of the newer PBAs, and yeah, just a good thing to always be kind of thinking about. And then I also think we've talked about this in the past, but I don't know if there's value or utility in having some Cal PBA social media presence that's, you know, on, yeah, I don't know. We have talked about that. I don't think we've ever taken that to the next level of maybe doing something like that, but something else to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was hoping that we would have some time to talk specifically about this site and some of the ideas or like directions I'd like to take it in. You know, Lenny, you mentioned this upcoming, webinar, and that's something that if you wanted to could be put on our website. So, and events in general from everybody. Let's like make this website a little bit more robust with what's going on. And what I would ask for you is your help in like notifying me of what's happening and giving me the relevant information so that I can put it on there. With all the other things that are kind of in play, it's hard for me to like also have a radar up for upcoming events all the time. So super helpful if you put those on my radar directly. And yeah, does anybody see that their PBA is not listed on this site? Because if so, we can easily get you a page. And I would encourage everybody to take a few minutes right now to take a look at your specific PBA's page, because I do get a fair amount of inquiries on this from this website from folks around California that are, or even beyond, that just want to learn more. And it's helpful to have like a consistent, reliable person to send them to in a specific area. So the contact information is really important.
Annie, just real quick, not about Placer PBA, but I previously worked for the Yuba Bear Burn Cooperative, and the young woman who took over is on maternity leave. And so I will try and find out who that new contact is. From what I know about that group, they're a little bit more, they liked the idea of being organic and having very little leadership. The Fire Safe Council, I think up there, is trying to move in and hire somebody to fully coordinate it, but it hasn't happened yet. But if anybody emails that email on there, the Madison Easley, I have a feeling it's just going to bounce out.
Okay.
I'm curious how up to date that map is on the it's just California PBA / community-based burning efforts map, and it has the formation status.
Yeah, it's not very up to date. That one isn't even the. Yeah, I guess that's another thing that we should probably talk about, Annie, is if we want to recreate that. And maybe if there's a way to make it live on the website, I don't know, but maybe you and I should chat about that offline and try to get that updated, because I know there's some changes, and I can change it on my end, but if there's a better way to do it, we should probably try to figure that out.
I know it'd be cool if there were a map that people could like click on the map to link up to the active group in their area or something.
Like and Humboldt County has 4 groups now or whatever we have. Trinity County has a whole pile of groups. Siskiyou has multiple. Like, it'd be nice if you could click on the county and then it plops you into, here's the different groups, contacts for each group. But I don't know the best way to do that. And I guess I kind of like the idea that this is me personally changing the subject. I like the idea that the California PBA page is really just a funnel through to the local PBAs, and then maybe having announcements on there is an unrealistic expectation, because we're, at least Lainey and I, are bad enough about, announcing events to our own group, much less remembering to go update them to the PBA, the state PBA website. It just seems like it's a lot of work to try to keep that thing up to date, is my own thought or comment. So the flow through is good enough, is my thought.
Yeah, I mean, with these kind of sites, it's best to keep them simple because we want them to be, again, like that sort of funnel to the more direct work happening on the ground. We do get a fair amount of visitors to this site and a fair amount of folks that I think are just curious in general about the movement and maybe don't even know where to look first. So I think the utility of having some general information that's kept up to date is for sort of folks that don't even know that they have a PBA in general in their community. So I think, yeah, we're kind of like walking this balance a little bit of like making it as resource dense as we can without it being so much work, and also making it accessible to the local folks that are looking for a specific PBA. So the site's kind of trying to do a lot, but I think the more we can keep it up to date, if there's more photos you want to add to your specific PBA pages, that's great. And it's pretty easy for me to just go in and do that. So never feel like you're bothering me if you want updates.
Cool. Yeah, maybe we could even schedule a time that could be an optional time for other PBA leaders or something, but like the Jeff, Annie, and me, and then anyone else who want to like spend a little time on the website. I'm thinking some of the liability materials, I mean, as soon as the claims fund rolls out next week, those are going to need to be updated. We're going to want to put the link to the claims fund on this website. That's actually one of like the bigger state, like CAL FIRE wants us to host that link there. So I think, yeah, we should schedule maybe another time to dig in and invite whoever wants to join that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I know Jared Childress has been thinking about putting together a more interactive map too, Jeff.
Oh, cool.
So one of those things that gets, I think, caught up in other stuff, but.
Right.
Lena, what kind of timeline are you looking at? Maybe I'll just send out a doodle.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, I'm going to be I'm available next week, but then I'll be unavailable till after July 7th. And I do apologize. I have to jump off now. I'm hosting like my entire family today. So I need to go and engage with those people. But I loved seeing all of you, and Jeff and Annie can close out the call, and you guys can all keep the recording going and everything. But thank you so much, Annie, and thanks to everyone for being here. And we're having another one on July 12th at 11 a.m. and that'll be on prescribed fire monitoring with Joe Restano from CAL FIRE. So I hope to see you all then. And I hope to see you on the July 11th Claims Fund webinar at 1 p.m. And I'll send that out soon. So, okay, I'm going to take off. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Lania.
Actually, how do I?
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so calpba.org. Let's continue to talk about that.
Just turn off your video and.
I just made you the host.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. Sorry, I stepped on you there.
No problem. Yeah, I was just kind of offering a chance to wrap up that conversation about calpba.org unless anybody has other feedback or ideas there. Okay, cool. Well, I'll drop a couple just like Google Doc templates that I found useful for both like developing a general communication strategy and then an event specific communication strategy. Say if you're having a Trex or a training or something that you want to have specific comms about. So this template, not everybody has editing privilege, but you can make a copy and then, make it however you want it to look, change it up. There's just sort of general kind of organizational ideas or like things to keep in mind when you're putting together one of these strategies. So feel free to use that, share it. And actually, I think I got to pop a couple logos on there to make sure I'm recognizing RFFC funding. So before you make copies, make sure, let me do that. And yeah. Any other topics or content ideas or questions from folks?
Maybe just some ideas of like how to promote just the idea of prescribed fire in our communities. I think Puck has pretty good outreach, and as more people know about it, I think more people learn, neighbors learn and stuff. But I think I still run into people who don't know what prescribed fire is when I'm talking to folks. So I'm not sure if you have any ideas for just like countywide like strategies for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's something we're all kind of like tackling and like trying to figure out is like how to counterbalance some of this like decades long understanding of what fire is, and the purpose and the utility and the pathological nature of it. How do we counterbalance that with approaching it completely differently and repairing the relationship? And in terms of outreach on that, like, I mean, continuing to do what you're doing and putting out the word in your community, like I think it's really easy to feel overwhelmed with trying to make this message as broadcasted as possible, when in reality, the work you're doing on the ground is really important, and that creates templates for it to spread further. And so I get really caught up sometimes in feeling kind of like fixated on everybody needing to know this message. And in reality, it has to spread as it's going to spread, and it has to be somewhat organic. So I wouldn't get too sort of caught up in making sure everybody knows what prescribed fire is. It's more about doing the good work you're doing and sharing it with the people that are listening. I also think there's something to be said for like cultivating relationships with the media, with like local outlets in your area that are going to have a broadcast capacity that's bigger than what you might have just as your own organization. So, you know, having a journalist write up a story about one of the burns you do and putting that in local outlets is really great. I feel like there was something else I was going to say about that, but I forgot.
I think our struggle with that, and like specifically, is we don't have any journalists in the area. There's no news station. There's a newspaper, but it's like you submit your own. So I'll post stuff every once in a while in the newspaper, but
yeah,
there's no one that writes about others unless they're like complaining. So
yeah. Well, I'll put in another plug for the Fire Adapted Learning Network blog, which I think has see you, Luca, thanks for joining, which I think has a pretty positive readership, and we get a lot of shares and sort of like engagement with our posts, and it's a really good opportunity to share the message that you want people to know about the work that you do and about prescribed fire. So right for us, you know, write about maybe a successful event with Puck, and I would be super happy to put it on that blog.
Cool, good idea.
I also want to plug the consortium. If any of you guys want to partner with us ever, we have held like field tours for the public, and that usually gets people on board when they're actually able to learn about prescribed fire out in the field. So if any of you guys ever want to partner with us for an event like that, we do have like pretty hefty readership of the newsletter, so we can help spread the news and of the event or whatever, and help with logistics and support with that as well. So feel free to reach out to me if you ever want to do something like that, a field tour, or have any other ideas. And as long as it's linking fire science to like fire science communication with your goal, then I think it'd be mutually beneficial and we'd be on board for that. So feel free to reach out if you have any ideas or want to partner.
Do you have a website, Autumn?
Yeah, so the domain extension got like messed up. We couldn't renew it, so it's cafireside.com, and I just dropped it into the chat.
Awesome.
Autumn, could you also share your contact in the chat?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
All right, is there anything else you want to talk about, or does anyone else have any more questions? I just want to be mindful of everyone's time today. Okay.
Thank you guys so much. It's been really helpful.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.